maybe I've got a camera just making sure my loved one's safe. And now actually maybe it's a two-way camera. So now that individual in the home, I see my loved one is escalating, and maybe my voice is going to be helpful. So from a remote perspective, I can come on and say, hey, last time an acute episode happened. Oh, and Dane has a fall. Dane ends up at the hospital.
Okay.
As a result of that fall, Dane can no longer do X, Y, and Z. Dane gets an assessment from Ontario Health at Home. 14 hours a week equates to basically 2 hours a day.
Okay.
So maybe it's an AM, PM visit like we were talking about last time as well. So Dane's going to get somebody to come in at, say, 8 a.m., help him get out of bed, help him get dressed, brush his teeth. If I'm get someone from Africa and I grew up in my community, they don't put people in homes, right? So now we're building these homes, which is the right thing to do because we need them. But there's also that understanding that many more new immigrants to this country aren't going to be putting their loved ones in homes. So they're going to be needing a different level of support at home for that individual because they don't want to put them in a home. They are going to do their best to take care of that loved one, likely at home.
Yeah.
So it's a changing landscape as well in terms of the needs of long-term care and the needs of home care.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sandwich Years. And for those of you who are first dialing in for the first time, Sandwich Years is when you're taking care of the top one, which is an elderly, potentially moms, dads, brothers, siblings, anybody on the top one. And then you're also taking care of some dependents as well. And so that can be kids of all ages. And I think I've talked to many people to say, even though they're adult kids, they still need you. You're still a parent. You might be also taking care of nieces, nephews, and maybe even some fur babies as well. Today, we are with Dane from Stay at Home Forever, and he's going to help us understand a little bit more about the home care system, as well as he's a supportive brand. So welcome, Dane.
Thank you.
If you can give a little bit of who you are and your company, that'd be great.
Sure. So happy to be back and Stay Home Forever. I am the president and CEO. So obviously, for those that saw the last episode, I've got a long history in the healthcare industry. So happy to be here to sort of talk and speak on or discuss anything, obviously home care related, but also healthcare related. Happy to answer any questions and just kind of an open dialogue.
Awesome. So a couple of questions. What is some of the technology or things that are happening with home care now and trends and stuff?
There's a lot with technology. And I think often in healthcare, technology scares people. I think I'll just say Canadians in general, I think, are a bit adverse sometimes to technology just based on sort of our system because we're not allowed to do as much. PHIPAA is a legislation that prevents some things. So that always comes into play. But I think we've got to get more comfortable with it is what I just wanted to say. But there's a lot from, I can check my blood pressure. I can help monitor IVs. I can just know that my loved one's safe, with those alarm, pendants and tablets that exist. So there's a lot that happens now from a digital technology perspective. You can have a virtual visit. You don't have to actually go in. There's also, evolution in the physio and OT world where they'll do virtual assessments without even being in the home. So there's a lot more happening. I think we just have to get more comfortable with it and feel that that's going to be sufficient for our loved ones. So,
okay.
But lots of opportunity in the technology space to kind of help someone feel more comfortable. Even just knowing that, hey, here's a notification that, hey, the individual did show up when they were supposed to. Maybe you're in an important meeting in the office, but you still want to know that person showed up for that visit. You get that notification. So we can use technology for good in the healthcare space and the home care space.
Okay. And so we get notifications that someone's there, but you can also have video coverage and video cameras and things like that.
Absolutely.
And it's comfort level, right? When things that you want to make sure that people are doing for you that you can't do for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so having those pieces in. And so from a technological standpoint, home care companies can actually do recommendations too, right?
Absolutely.
Like he will say, you know what, even like diabetes and stuff, there are things that are monitoring and being comfortable, I guess you're saying, with the cloud where the information's being stored. Is that kind of
where the information being stored? Also just being comfortable with information sharing.
Okay.
And I think, obviously everyone's concerned with cybersecurity and all of those things, and for the right reasons. But I think it's also just being okay and saying, I consent to, right? So there's informed consent, there's consent. And And consent's always a big conversation and topic, but just being more comfortable to consent to having something and trying something sometimes will be important. Like you talked about, maybe it's I've got a camera just making sure my loved one's safe. And now actually maybe it's a two-way camera. So now that individual in the home, I see my loved one is escalating and maybe my voice is going to be helpful. So from a remote perspective, I can come on and say, hey, I'm here. Oh.
And I trust them.
Correct.
Please trust them as well.
So maybe it helps de-escalate. Maybe it doesn't, but at least that's another option versus, they're escalating, not sure how to contact, they're calling them, trying to pass them a phone, that's not working, they throw the phone across the room. Doesn't always end up in the best situation. So, could be an option.
Okay. And I mean, too, so I'm going to be honest, for PSWs and just home care, people put cameras to get that security.
For sure.
I think it's important to let people know they're being videotaped.
Yeah.
Like
we always ask, if you've got a video camera, just let us know so we can inform the staff.
Yeah.
Right. So just from a comfort level and, in any industry, I believe in the 80-20 rule, right? Not everybody's going to be there and doing it well. So maybe this is that added level of security or added level of peace of mind that that Dane's coming into the home and Dane's doing what Dane's been tasked to do and or asked to do. And just quick look on the camera. Yep, Dane's doing what he's been asked to do. My loved one's safe. I'm good.
Yeah. And I think there's one thing of secretly having one, but why? If somebody knows that they're there, it might deter them from doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
Correct.
So at the end of the day, telling them would actually be in your best interest as opposed to keeping it a secret.
I agree. It's going to, by you telling them, it's going to maybe, oh, shoot, I do have to do a really, really good job here. You should be wanting to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's that added level of security and comfort that says, hey, I know that they've got a camera, so I should be doing what I'm supposed to do.
And safety-wise on both sides.
Yep.
Because I'll be honest, if you're taking care of potentially an elder who doesn't have the right memory or the brain capacity, their interpretation of something could be very different from your own.
Happens all the time.
And so having that extra could help.
Happens
I
all
love
the time.
that you were talking about there's two-way now, and the voice recognition could also help. And I know with my dad, when he was going through some stuff, the PSWs, you call me, and so that I could actually talk to him.
Yep.
And then also I had a better ability to understand what he was going through. Like when he forgot his name, heartbreaking, and I could just see his face, like the dignity on his face. And I had to just tell him, it's okay, Daddy, I know your last name.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And so knowing those pieces helps them.
Absolutely.
Okay. So a lot of that, you mentioned PIPEDA, which I think not everybody, can you just talk to that so everybody
Basically,
understands
it's the
that?
laws that govern sort of how we as a healthcare system communicate information back and forth, right?
And
there's
personal information.
Personal information. So there's other stuff like the HIC and stuff like that. We won't get into all of those nitty gritties, but it's basically what is allowed to be shared and who owns that client, who has the right to share that information. You as an individual, as the patient, what are your rights?
Okay.
What are the rights of the hospital, the right of the home care association that's giving it to you? So it kind of governs all of that. And sometimes you'll hear in the media, this is why, I'll get on a soapbox for a bit, that our healthcare system moves a little bit slower because we do have a lot of laws and healthcare. And sometimes, like, I'll tell a quick story, is that sometimes it works to our advantage where it's really, truly protecting, and then sometimes it doesn't. Because sometimes that individual has to tell their story multiple times because we haven't been able to share that information. So Dane is now going to the hospital and telling his story. Dane is now being discharged to home and has to tell the same story again because that information isn't being shared. So when we go back to technology, just sharing that information, now when that person goes to see Dane, they already have that information.
The story.
So now they're walking in to say, hey, Dane had this episode, Dane has this background, Dane is needing this type of care, as opposed to that individual coming in and then talking to Dane, and Dane's now telling a story for the 10th time.
Yeah.
So guess what? Dane's going to be pissed off.
100%.
And that doesn't create that good relationship and dynamic up front, because I'm like, why am I telling you the same story? Don't you have that information?
Oh, yeah. And I think all of us know that frustration.
Correct.
And that frustration is not, especially when you need help, it's not an easy thing to go through because you're now telling the story about 50 million times. Yep. And the story could have got distorted by this because you shortened it.
Yep.
You're like, I'm not telling you everything. Yep. I just feel this.
Absolutely.
Okay. So PIPEDA, and other laws, there are laws in place, especially ones for home care,
Yep.
that will actually help protect us.
Yep.
It does slow down the process, but it still helps us.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so home care wise, how fast could we get that? Like if I recognize that I need home care, or my spouse, my parent, or how fast can that turn around?
You can have it tomorrow. You can even have it same day.
Really?
If you called us at 9 a.m. and you said something emergent happened and you need somebody that evening, we could probably find it for you.
Okay.
It might not be, if we go back to that last time I was here and we talked about the right fit, maybe it's not the right fit because it's really quick. I just need something and we're going to get somebody there. But that's the reality. We had a call today of somebody looking for services tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. because this individual,
that's a long time.
Long time, but they're really looking at services for their loved one as a stopgap before they go to long-term care. Okay. Because as much as we talk about, even the name of the company, Stay Home Forever is maybe where you belong or where it's going to be right for you and the right type of care. And sometimes you can't stay home forever. Mm-hmm. Your next home might be long-term care. Your next home might be a retirement home, right? So it's really as fast as you need it. And I'd say most companies, not all, but most could probably get it for you relatively quickly.
Okay. And the other piece that you just touched on is home care, long-term home and all those sorts of homes. Some of them have waiting lists.
Yep.
And so to be quite honest, it's a lot faster to get somebody in the home to help while you're actually waiting to be on that list or waiting to get there. Then there's people who are coming from homes that are like, you know what, I actually would rather be at home to pass away. Yep. And they need support in that sentiment. Is that's a good time to call as well, right?
Absolutely. And if you think about, so healthcare in general is expensive. But if you think about the cost, and I'm not going to go into specifics on cost, but the cost of retirement home, long-term care, often the cost of home care is less than going to a retirement home. So if I can provide that level of care at home and they want to be home, then why not?
Yeah. But sometimes you can't provide the care at home.
Correct.
And I mean, be honest, if somebody is at home and they're getting home care and your company recognizes that, you know what, this is beyond scope. Like, is there it's beyond. Like, you really should get them because they're starting to escape potentially, and being home is not helping them.
Not going to be safe anymore. Yeah, absolutely. Like, our staff, basically, they have to put in their care notes. They have to let us know what's happening. And if we see those kind of escalating, we then go send that assessment. We have that conversation with that family that says, you know what, we have to start looking at something else here. Because in the next 6 months, the next 2 months, the next 1 month, this may not be the right place for them. And we have to have those honest conversations.
Okay. And there's signs of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Like signs,
Absolutely.
like escaping, those sorts of things. And I mean, there's so much locks you can put on it, but if somebody wants to get out, they're going to get out.
Behaviors could be escalating to the point where it's no longer safe for staff going in because the behaviors are just escalating, whether it's they're picking up and throwing stuff at them or maybe they're reaching in the cupboard and getting a knife. Whatever it might be that's happening, it's escalating to a point that's no longer safe for the client and or safe for staff. Okay. So then what is next and how do we handle those situations? Okay.
So a couple of things. I think our last episode, we kind of started touching on it, but what can a PSW do for you? Do they don't cook? They're not chefs.
No.
Or are they? Okay, they won't cook. So they'll do food preparation.
But they can do light meals prep. And again, I think, the conversation we were having around government services versus private services, a private service individual coming in probably could cook for you. Like, that could be something that if that's what you're looking for, we would find the right individual for you. But on the government side, it would be light meal prep. Some they're going to make a sandwich. Maybe they'll make breakfast.
Microwave something.
Yeah, something in the microwave. And some, maybe they will make some eggs quickly on the stove and, do things like that. But they're not going to make a full-blown meal, rice and peas, jerk chicken. It's not going to happen from that perspective. But, I think there's an opportunity there. Well, I'll say oxtail. That's my goal.
Okay. Okay, so, well, and in true reality, if you want a full-on meal like oxtail, you would get a chef. Right? But I mean, the key is that you also don't want them paying for them to be in your home doing things that potentially could be pre-done, that could be warmed and stuff like that.
Correct.
You need the bath. So they can help do the bathing, the brushing of the teeth, the braiding of the hair. Can they do hair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And when I say braiding of hair or even combing of
Just
hair,
brushing the hair. Yeah.
brushing the hair. I think one of our episodes we talked about moisturizing and
Yeah.
moisturizing is very, very important. So getting them through that, helping them get clothed for the day, up and
100%.
running.
Yep.
Because we all know, maybe even for myself, you can be cranky in the morning.
Yeah, for sure.
And so maybe that's something you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And they'll probably be much nicer. Like I knew my dad's PSWs. He was really nice to them. When it came to me telling him what to do, he was just like, no.
Yeah.
And he gave me a hard time. And then they're like, he won't do that to us. And I was like, I guess.
It's a different relationship. It's a different relationship.
Okay, so they'll do that. We talked about they can help with teaching new medical things that they have to take care of themselves. So like diabetes, anything else like that?
Yeah, again, I think we talked about exercises, delegated tasks, which they would then be given we talked about the clinicians giving them those delegated tasks. Again, it's really, and I think sometimes people forget, sometimes the conversation is, maybe I'm coming to do this, but on that day, Dane needed this. So maybe instead of I'm going to make breakfast, Dane didn't want breakfast. So maybe let's just talk to Dane. Maybe let's watch a show with Dane. Let's communicate. Because it's not always going to be the same thing over and over again. They're still human beings. They're individuals. And we all have good days. We all have bad days. So maybe it was not the greatest day. Maybe they weren't hungry. And it's not, let me just come and then leave. No, it's, okay, what else can I do to support that individual? And I think that's what you hear a lot of, unfortunately, in the home care sector. On the government side is that, we're only there for 10 or 15 minutes. And that absolutely does happen, which is unfortunate because they showed up and the individual said, I don't need anything today. But instead of saying, okay, what can I truly help you with? Maybe it's taking the garbage out. Maybe it's, just playing a game of cards, whatever it might be, dominoes, whatever it is, and helping that individual for that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever time that visit is, goes a long way.
So PSW, are they trained in compassionate care?
Yep. So there's GPA, so gentle persuasive approach, which is more so for dementia, kind of just how do I redirect somebody? There's lots of trainings that we provide to our staff specifically, and other companies do as well, to really help redirect behaviors, understand how to support people differently. There's lots of stuff out there, trainings. So they just give them the tools to do better.
So they have all those tools, which is tools we don't have.
Yep.
Like no one told me how to gently care for anybody. We'll not talk about that in this episode because I'm sure my kids have lots to say. But so they're trained on dealing and helping, right? Which is great. Okay, so good things there. So now when we talk about financially and what we can do, government will provide care, possibly funding for if it's immediate care that's known. Is that how it works? Like, how does that piece work?
I'll walk through maybe a use case of, how you end up with maybe government services. And the use case would be, like we talked about last time, an acute episode happens. Dane has a fall. Dane ends up at the hospital.
Okay.
As a result of that fall, Dane can no longer do X, Y, and Z. Dane gets an assessment from Ontario Health at Home. Ontario Health at Home then deems that Dane's going to get, let's say, 14 hours a week.
Okay.
So 14 hours a week equates to basically 2 hours a day.
Okay.
So maybe it's an AM, PM visit like we were talking about last time as well. So Dane's going to get somebody to come in at, say, 8 a.m., help him get out of bed, help him get dressed, brush his teeth, get some light breakfast.
Okay.
Then Dane's got nothing until PM.
Okay.
So now maybe it's 8 p.m., watching my basketball game. Somebody comes in to get me dressed, helps me get to bed.
Okay.
So that's based on that assessment that happened post-injury. Part of that assessment could have been maybe they get an OT visit we talked about before, so the occupational therapy visit, a physiotherapy visit, because now I need to do my exercises as a result of that fall. But that's typically how it happens. So as a result of an episode, you have an assessment done, and that assessment through the Ontario Health at Home branch of the ministry and Ontario Health gives you what hours you're entitled to.
Covered. 100%.
You have to pay for none of that.
None of that. Now, what happens after, so they say 2 weeks, for example, or 3 weeks. And 3 weeks now, Dane's still not feeling 100%, or Dane's not going back to 100% because that fall was pretty drastic. With that said, they're like, well, the government's capped you or said, this is it. And so now you're sitting there going, I need something. Correct. That's when you would fund it yourself?
Potentially. So yeah, the two things will happen if, Dane's not getting better. Maybe they do a reassessment and maybe Dane gets more hours.
Okay.
Or so maybe it goes from 14 to 56. So
Okay.
now I've got some significant hours that I can kind of look at. Or maybe they say, you know what, 14 is all that Dane's going to get. No, he's not going to get better, but he's not going to get too worse right now.
It's like a stopgap.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, these couple hours, morning, evening.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, and Dane will be okay. So now maybe Dane does need to look at, hey, maybe I do need, or Dane's family or Dane's caregiver or whatever that looks like says, hey, let's get him a few extra hours. And then, yes, you would look at, private services if you can afford it. That's the reality of that.
And so private services now, there's no minimum hours. So
No.
I can say, hey, Dane, I need you I need to stay at home for an hour a day, because it's subsidizing or it's supporting what I'm getting from the government.
Correct.
And so with that said, it's like, okay, that's perfect. And so you do that piece. And I think when we had another episode with another person in the sandwich years, he was sort of he was getting government support, but when his mom came to his house to shift it was not going to be ideal.
Yeah.
So if anything, they just said vacation, and they did they did home care.
Yep.
And that's another solution for home care.
It happens
well.
all the time. Like to that comment, it's maybe they're moving or they're going away for a week, and you can look to port those services. So find the equivalent company on the other side that would then, it would be covered by the government. Or it's just easier sometimes to be like, you know what, I'm going to pay that money, peace of mind. I know who's coming in. They're at my home for the week or 2 weeks, and I'm just going to foot the bill.
Can you write off any of that?
Yeah, there's a lot, when you're paying for these types of home care services, renovation services in the healthcare space, that you can then use as a tax write-off.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's key
talk to your accountant, not me about that. So talk to your accountant.
But it's really just understanding that. And I think from what I learned about healthcare in general, a lot of it is itemized receipts, that kind of stuff, so that at least then your tax person can educationally say, okay, it was for this service, so that you can write off. This one you can't write off.
So here's a nuance that I do know exists, that if I am getting government services and I want to pay for private services, I actually don't have to pay taxes, because government services aren't taxed. So when you invoice the government for government provided PSW, nursing, OT, etc., it's the actual cost. So if I want to get additional services because I feel like I need them for my loved one, that company should actually not be charging you tax. So if you are, double check that. But if I'm just doing it on my own and I'm not getting, then you are charged tax. So again, I'm not an accountant, so go find an accountant to ask those questions, but there's lots of things to consider in that space.
Okay. And so when you want to know that kind of stuff, I think when you're talking to your home service, talk to your accountant and things like that to say, this is it. And I think depending on if it's elderly or depending on who it's for, there are certain credits that you can use for that kind of care.
Yep.
Right. And so really just finding out what you don't know.
Ask the questions. Last time I was here, we talked about that. Ask the questions. It doesn't hurt to ask. Are there dumb questions? I will say yes. But ask the questions. Ask the questions.
This is where me and you will differ. There's
the
never a dumb question. If you don't know
we can debate that another day, but yes, there are dumb questions.
But I think one of the things I learned, and you're in the sandwich years, so Dane's in the sandwich years, you don't know everything, and you have to ask questions.
100%.
Yep. And so asking questions are going to get you answers. Don't make any assumptions.
Correct.
And then also when you are in the situation where you need care, we talked about making sure 911 is one of the things, but there are other places that you can get information about care as well.
Absolutely.
And so that is not ChatGPT or Google. It's some of the lines that you mentioned before, but if you can reiterate it again.
Just really 211 Ontario Health at Home, Ontario Health, just all those different opportunities are there in front of you to get the information. And the last thing I'll say, just touching on we talked about long-term care a little bit. I think the biggest thing right now is the landscape of Ontario and Canada is changing through immigration, right? And I talked to Dr. David Kaplan. You can look him up. He's the Chief Quality Officer of Ontario Health. And we had a really good interesting conversation around long-term care homes being built from an institution of years ago because of what Canada was. But now Canada's changing in immigration. Mm-hmm. And if I'm an immigrant from Africa and I grew up in my community, they don't put people in homes, right? So now we're building these homes, which is the right thing to do because we need them. But there's also that understanding that many more new immigrants to this country aren't going to be putting their loved ones in homes. So they're going to be needing a different level of support at home for that individual because they don't want to put them in a home. Obviously, at some point, maybe that's where they do have to go. But until then, they are going to do their best to take care of that loved one, likely at home.
Yeah.
So it's a changing landscape as well in terms of the needs of long-term care and the needs of home care in our province and our country.
Yeah. And culturally, you said it, it's not an option.
Nope.
And so I think the key is understanding what your options are,
Correct.
especially, and varying your options based on the care that you need.
Yep.
So that is definitely very good insights and I think a lot of people are recognizing this. I think cultural care is key. And we didn't talk about it too much before, but when our elderly community grows, they sort of revert to when they were younger.
100%.
And whatever the constructs of what they're used to is their culture.
Yep.
And so being able to understand their culture, appreciate their culture, or even try to is going to be very important to them.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And so that kind of peace of mind might help.
Yep. When you go back to like those conversations, and the lady I was speaking to yesterday, she said her and her husband talk about the old days. So somebody who understands the old days with respect to, hey, here's what I did. You know, I came here from St. Vincent, my tiny little island, and I remember growing up and doing different things that you don't do here. So maybe when I'm, 85 and I'm thinking back, I used to climb the banana tree. And I can relate to that in a conversation. But if you don't understand that, then maybe it's a different conversation.
Understand or appreciate.
Yeah.
I appreciate that that's possible, because I think that's another piece of just even cultural understanding is that's what you guys did. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Or that's not. So question for home care, say I was from a certain culture. Can I ask for a PSW from a certain culture?
So absolutely. I think, that word racism gets thrown into, well, if I'm asking for a specific, no, you're asking for somebody who's going to provide a level of care for your loved one that you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Right. So whether it's from a language gap, a language barrier, so they understand, like, if I'm here and I'm a Chinese immigrant and I need care for my loved one, I want them to speak Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's from India, or it's from France and it's French, whatever it might be. That's going to provide you another level of support that makes sense. So I think it's hugely important. And for us, that's why, I got into this company, Stay Home Forever, was really to do something different.
Okay.
It's that culturally competent care that says, I understand. Do I take my shoes off when I enter the home? What are cultures doing?
Yeah.
So now it's relatable, right? I can speak the language. Or going back to food, that light meal prep, maybe it's jerk chicken, right? Whatever it is, because it's, or maybe it's mashed potatoes because they're from England.
Yeah.
Mash, bangers and mash, I think is what they say.
Yeah. So,
whatever
okay,
that
so
might
we
be.
can ask. So for
You
stay at home,
should
if you
be
call,
comfortable.
if we call your company, I can say, hey, I actually would love someone with Italian descent.
100%.
And
That speaks Greek, that speaks.
And you have that kind of.
Yep.
Okay. And so and you pride yourself
Yep.
in having that.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we don't, we'll say, you know what, we don't have it right now.
Okay.
We're not going to be like, oh yeah, and we don't. No, if we don't, but here's somebody who might. Right?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's about the individual and getting them the right care.
Yep. And so there's cultural, but there's specialties as well.
Absolutely.
So you might be like, do you have a PSW that specializes in dementia
Yep.
and specializes in things? So very, very, how do I say this? You can be very specific with kind of what you would like.
Yep.
The other piece is once you do the assessment too, you can also say
I would
it's
put-
probably best if you have somebody who is more dementia focused than Alzheimer's, or more dementia focused than them being in a certain culture.
I would tailor it to say that finding the right tailored care for your loved one, almost like here's the menu and here's the items I need off that menu that are going to provide that care for my loved one.
Okay. And sometimes when you don't know, you guys will tell them.
Yep.
Like you folks will sit there and go, because of the assessment we did, we paired you with this person first to try. And if this doesn't work, we'll pair you with another. And we talked about this in the first episode, was more in sense of just the fact that you might not get the match the first time.
Correct.
You might get it the second time or the third time. And it might be a pair of two. Like one person comes this time and this person. Okay. Honestly, Dane, I think this has been phenomenal for me.
Thank you.
I have a feeling people are going to be like, bring back Dane. And I will try.
Happy to come back.
Okay, perfect. Key thing overall is ask questions.
Yep.
And be open to the options.
Yep.
I think is key as well. So like there are many options in taking care of your loved ones, whether they're elderly or not even dependents. And if they need support medically or even just from a companionship. Companionship side.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that we didn't touch too much on here, but we'll talk about more, is sometimes when someone passes away, the companion is left.
Yep.
And they need some companion support. And to be quite honest, sharing a couple dollars to make sure that the survivor is still doing okay is not a bad thing.
Social isolation is something else we'll talk about another time, but keeping people active and not isolated goes a long way.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's it for the Sandwich Years. Stay tuned for the next time. Thank you again.